Welcome to our Summer Psalms podcast called A Symphony of Psalms. Today is another symphony that Rachel will introduce, and I'm Kim LaRue from Powell United Methodist Church, and I'm Director of Adult Ministries.
And I'm Rachel Parfinchuk, Director of Music Ministries. And I'm very excited today to be introducing a new work for us to talk about, which is Chichester Psalms by Leonard Bernstein. So just a little bit of information about this work before we dive into talking about each movement specifically. So this piece is written for choir, orchestra, and either a boy soprano or a countertenor. Now, I think that in the past we've talked about a countertenor, but just as a refresher, a countertenor is a male singer that sings exclusively in the falsetto voice, so it sounds like it could potentially be an alto or even maybe a lower soprano. But the general idea here is that this soloist is not a woman. It is either a young boy or a countertenor. And this music the text is from the book of Psalms, and it is actually in the original Hebrew that it is sung in. So that's a difference from the last work, which was said in Latin. This is actually said in Hebrew, which is especially interesting considering Leonard Bernstein's connection to the Jewish faith. And we know that the Hebrew language is a really important component of that. And so this piece is considered one of his most overtly Jewish compositions. And it was commissioned for a festival at Chichester Cathedral, which is where it gets the name Chichester Psalms. So I think many people might be familiar with some of Leonard Bernstein's work, maybe a little show called West Side Story, perhaps.
I've heard of that.
Yes, it's one of my favorites, and you'll hear that in this music there's a very strong, I would say, personal style of Bernstein. So you hear, even though it's not West Side Story, it's church music, you still hear those influences, and it just makes it honestly a whole bunch of fun to listen to.
Yes, it does. And you said you got to sing this, right?
Yes, I did this when I was in college at Ohio Wesleyan.
That's awesome. I can't even imagine trying to learn Hebrew to be able to sing it, so that's really great. So let me read the Psalms. In this first movement, there are two Psalms that Bernstein uses. Psalm 108, this is the very beginning of this movement. Awake, psaltery and harp, I will rouse the dawn. So you're going to hear that when you start listening to this piece. It's like, hello, wake up kind of feeling. He did a great job with that. Again, this is a psalm that's attributed to David. And the psalm talks about just, I think, just the awe of the fact that the dawn comes, right? That the sun comes up during every day. Then he moves on to Psalm 100 in the text. Again, we're not going to be able to tell when that changes in terms of the language because it's Hebrew, but we will in the music.
Yes,
yeah.
You will definitely be able to hear that change.
Right. So this Psalm 100, the text that he's focused on here is, make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands. This should sound really familiar. This is a very familiar psalm. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Know that the Lord, he is God. He made us and we are his. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Come into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him and bless his name. The Lord is good. His mercy everlasting and his truth endureth to all generations. So again, this idea of God's steadfastness, endurance always, even though we may flake out or change over time, God is always constant. So just a beautiful movement that he demonstrates all of this.
Exactly, yeah. And so in the music, I mean, you hear almost all of these items. You know, the first moment in this movement, we've got this really strong choral it sounds like bells. It sounds like the ringing of the church bells. Da, 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 da. It just has this joyful, exciting, there's not a lot of movement exactly, but there's energy. And so that section of the music, that's our Psalm 108. That's our introduction. We're awaking, we're rising, we're getting ready. And then we move into Psalm 100. And as we just said, you hear a definitive change in the music. We go into this asymmetrical meter, this 7/4 meter. So that's what gives us this dance-like feel, but it almost keeps you on your toes because it's not even. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you get this really playful feeling just from the meter that he's chosen to then really showcase this Psalm 100, which, as you said, is so familiar and well loved.
One of the things that I loved, I got to go to a worship service in a synagogue at one point, and they danced during the service, right? Mm-hmm. And it is joyful, and it's usually a circle dance. If you've not ever seen Hebrew dancing, you may have seen Greek dancing where they're standing in a circle kind of holding each other, and it is this kind of that same 7/4 feeling. So I think he's well represented that experience also of the Jewish tradition of dance in worship. Even though, again, this would have been performed in a symphonic setting in an orchestra hall someplace. Nevertheless, he is well representing what it would have felt like in possible a worship service, or the way that it would have been experienced with someone saying the psalm or singing the psalm.
Yeah, so it was actually, this piece was premiered in a Philharmonic hall in New York City. So it was premiered in a hall, but it was actually commissioned then for a festival at Chichester Cathedral.
Love it.
So it's had its place in both, which I think is really cool too.
Oh, yeah. In the cathedral, yeah. That makes sense. Good. All right, so that's kind of the opening to Bernstein's Chichester Psalms. And I don't know, anything else you want to say about that?
I just hope that you enjoy listening to this piece. It certainly is fun, and I hope that it lifts your spirits.
Awesome. And I'm Kim LaRue from Cal United Methodist Church.